Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Is it streaming?
Yes.
The Patreon people get to see this part?
Yeah.
Wow, behind the scenes content, you got it. Whoa.
Oh, I need to ditch these. I don't need these.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
That's just for the special behind the scenes.
That's just for the
part.
special behind the scenes part.
We're going to just compare Endgame to Game of Thrones the whole time.
It's not completely unwarranted. It's not completely
Isn't that what
unwarranted.
everyone's doing
Yeah,
right
it's
now?
not completely unwarranted.
Yeah.
You had giant monsters,
Yeah.
big person, small person. They fought. Okay, cool. All right, let's
A
kick
lot
it
of people you love biting it.
Yeah, it is known. That was in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, you caught
Yeah,
that.
it is known.
Who said that one?
No, it's Rhodey.
There you
When they're
go.
talking about time travel movies.
Oh.
He's like, this is how time travel works. It is known.
It is known.
That's
There
for
you
you
go.
Patreon peeps.
See, this is the Easter eggs you were looking for. Welcome. All right, here we go. We're going to kick it off.
Yeah.
Buckle
Do it,
up.
Sam.
Click.
Click, click.
What's that? We're buckled up.
Yeah.
In 3, 2, 1. Hello, all. Welcome to Might Be Awesome. My name is Sam Basher.
My name is DJ Wooldridge.
And here's Miss Trisha Hirschberger. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this show. And thank you for joining us because today we're talking about the biggest, longest to date episode of Game of Thrones. That's episode 803, The Long Night. The Night King and his army have arrived at Winterfell and the great battle begins. Overall thoughts, kicking it off. Trisha, how was this for you? Dark? Yes, it's dark.
It was dark. Yes.
more ways than one.
This is going to sound horrible, but I felt I had mixed feelings on this episode because I thought it was going to be a whole lot worse. And I say it's going to sound horrible because I don't want it to come across like I'm disappointed more people didn't die. Because I'm very happy that more people didn't die. But also I felt like it was a little unrealistic given how many people were slaughtered in Winterfell that only some of our, let's say, B-level characters... besides Jorah, were the ones to bite it.
Yeah.
But like, I thought I was bracing for much worse, and maybe because of that, I felt a little not let down, but it was just it wasn't what I thought it was gonna.
We prepared ourselves like the past 2 episodes for like losing a good chunk,
Yeah.
maybe
Well,
a
that's
third
like
of our cast.
I was saying like the Red Wedding all over again, but
Yeah.
Winterfell, just everybody gonna die.
I think that struggle, and maybe the specifics will be different for different people, but I think that struggle is going to be real for a majority of the audience in that I think this episode was always going to struggle with expectation. We've been building to this since literally the first scene of the first episode, and book readers for decades. Like how long
Yes.
yeah, so
Uh-huh.
like I think I think this was going to be a little bit of a letdown no matter what. But
Fair.
I also had mixed feelings, but more in kind of the pacing. There was tremendously cool moments, but I felt like a very distinctive creative decision that like instead of like 2 pitched armies, it's an army versus just a wave of bodies. Let's make it feel chaotic, feel overwhelming, and I think that kind of sapped some of the battle of some of its coherence and some of its energy for me. And that dinged it a little bit, even though I overall did enjoy the episode.
I enjoyed it, but I have mixed feelings as well. But I think where this episode shines is when they're able to kind of like make it like, oh, now it's just a horror movie for one person, so we can focus on like Arya trying to escape the library. It's a
was
good
cool.
way of like, what's happening outside? It's raining dead bodies. Like we know that's what's happening. We just need to let's focus on this character. That way we can kind of quantify what the threat is. Like we
Yeah.
can understand that there are, let's say, 8 walkers in here. Let's see if we can get around them. Walkers, we'll call them that. That's
Whites.
fine. Whites.
They're whites.
Those
Yeah,
are the whites.
they're
The
whites.
white
Walkers
walkers
are the
makeup guys.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, those are the band members. Yeah, no, I appreciate that we are kind of able to break that down, and there were still character moments, but overall it felt weirdly safe. Except for when it wasn't for specifically Lyanna Mormont. She was the one who
that was the death that got you.
Yeah.
She bit it the worst out of every character on screen.
But like took down a frost giant.
yeah, that was
Pretty awesome.
And I like the juxtaposition. You saw a couple out there that were getting just torched. They
Yeah.
were, and that was cool. I like that. I like the World War Z aspect to the White Walkers. I thought that was, or to the Whites. I like that they were
Yeah.
just kind of coming out as a
It
wave.
was terrifying.
Yeah, but it like World War Z. Sometimes you're like, what is happening? Like, what am I looking at exactly?
I think the parts of the episode that succeeded the most for me were, like you said, when we kind of zeroed in on characters. And I also think maybe that was another issue too, is typically the big battles, it's like 2 people you care about on one side and 2 people you care about on another side. And this one was like literally basically every character's here at this moment, and we don't have time to focus on most of them really. Like
Yeah.
so, it's,
I feel like we saw Brienne for like half a second.
yeah, and Sam twice every time he's just overwhelmed. Like
No, he's rolling.
Stop, no.
He's rolling on the ground. Like, Sam, there's no way that you're alive right now because these zombies are armed.
But I liked the mood stuff, specifically at the beginning where you're just facing a wall. I thought that's where the darkness was effective, where it's literally just a wall of night. And then Melisandre, I liked when Melisandre rolls up because at first you think is like a White Walker coming to negotiate, like, and then it's her and she lights their swords on fire, and then the Dothraki roll out, and I immediately had a moment of like, no, this is actually really bad, because whenever you have like a good thing happen first, it's like, oh, then it's just bad. You want to start with a bad thing because that means later it's going to get good. Like, you don't want to start with a positive thing, and then one by one you see the lights go out, and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I agree with you. I loved the use of darkness for that part specifically, where the Dothraki are extinguished, if you will. I thought that was a very, very foreboding feeling, and we were right where Jon and Dany are, and it put us in a great spot to see Dany be like, yeah, no, we said we were going to hold off on dragons, but like all my people just died.
Yeah.
So,
which I had a question: is her Dothraki, are those all the Dothraki, or are there still Dothraki over in Essos?
You gotta, there's gotta be one splinter group.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of them.
It's a lot of them.
That are gone.
That's real. Yeah,
we
real.
don't cross the ocean, but come on, don't be babies. Come on, it's fine over here. No, is bad. And can I ask, just get this out of the way, where was Melisandre? Are you guys okay with the way that she just kind of, and I'm here now, and I am also, wait, I'm here, I light the trench, then I peace out to just a room and hide out to give off some information to Arya, and then at the end I get dusted like that.
I was okay with it only because I feel like she prepared us for that. Before she left in season 7, she said, I will come back one last time and then I will die here.
Contractually, I'll come back one more
yeah,
time.
like she told us that's what was going to happen. So of course, you know, when we're battling the Night King, you're like, well, that's obviously when she has to come back. She does fire stuff, so we're fighting an Ice King. So she came back. I expected it. And then I tried to believe that when she was just in that room with Arya and Beric and the Hound, that she was waiting for them there because she knew that was going to happen. Not just like that she dropped in. Because, I mean, I guess now we are to believe that Arya is the prince that was promised.
Yeah, you were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, which I guess was a way bigger deal in the books than it was in the show, because I was like, how is no one talking about this? She's the reincarnation of Azor Ahai! And like, I'm freaking out. And then Melisandre, who's the only person who could have maybe shed some light on that, takes off her necklace and dies. So I'm like, okay, I guess we're just not answering that question. But then when I was reading an article that said that was way more built up in the books, it made a lot more sense why the show might just let it go, kind of like Ghost.
Yeah, so
let it go.
And then all of a sudden you got distracted by something and you went off. In the
Wait,
woods.
so before we dive deeper into the episode, since you brought it up, her being the prince that is promised, I know we've discussed it before on our other Game of Thrones shows. Does that mean anything past taking out the Night King? Is there more to that?
So it's a very vague prophecy.
Or did she fulfill her prophecy and now we don't have to worry about it anymore?
No, I think she fulfilled the prophecy. But it was that it was the reincarnation of this Lord of Light hero from the past, and who's it going to be? And that's kind of why, like, Melisandre's whole thing was finding the prince that was promised. She originally thought it was Stannis. Then she thought Jon, and then maybe Dany. So then to just have it at the very last second be like, oh, no, wait, it's this one, and I kind of knew it all along. It's like, no, you didn't. We had no hint you knew that was that. What? Beyond you saying I see darkness in you in season 3 or whatever.
And
Thank you for the reminder,
eyes.
too, because when she was like, oh, yeah, we remember when we spoke before, I'm like, no, but probably. Like, that probably happened. I don't remember. And then you mentioned Gendry, like, that whole, like, interaction. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Well, she said the eyes thing back then, too. Although I believe she said the eyes in a different order in season 3 than she did in last night's episode.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people are speculating brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, which I believe is what she said in season 3. But last night she ended with blue eyes.
Yeah.
So all the people that are taking the brown, blue, green and saying, oh, it's Walder Frey, the Night King, Cersei.
Ooh.
That maybe that's what Melisandre was prophesying in that moment.
We'd have to go back and look at their eyes.
Well, I mean, those are the accurate eye colors.
Wow, that's crazy.
But I'm like, is Frey big enough of a threat to get on the top 3?
I mean, he was in a Harry Potter movie, so maybe.
I mean,
It was also
maybe.
her getting
But-
to use the faceless skills. I do like. I think my favorite, the use of Arya in this episode. I think was a real standout, and kind of like her using her weapon to like ninja a bunch of whites away, and then getting conked on the head, and just for a brief like a chunk of the episode, just really just trying to survive,
Yeah.
and then having her big hero moment, which was so cool.
But big hero moment.
Yeah.
How the hell did all those other whites just be like, hey, come on in?
No, but that's the thing. You see the little hair. She's moving. She's doing her ninja skills, so they don't even notice she's there. You see the little waft of hair, and they don't even register her. She's so tiny.
And they
too.
did show in the library that they respond to sound, it seems, more than vision.
Yeah.
So I guess if she was being super quiet
stealthy.
and
It's
sneaky,
all
maybe
those
they wouldn't
faceless
have known.
skills coming in last minute.
And set up like a Tarzan swing to kind of swing in on a vine. Because how did she? Where'd she? What?
I don't.
Seriously?
I don't.
Where did she come from?
None of that bothers me.
I know.
None of that bothers me.
Hey, it's just saying. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Just saying. She had some air.
Yeah.
She had some leaps.
Yeah.
She got. It's just saying. It's.
And
She got jumps.
her Gendry weapon was not a dragon killing weapon.
No.
So as we were talking about before, no one planned for the ice dragon. Not a damn person was like, hey, there's an ice dragon coming. We should probably find a way to stop
Like
that.
plan
one of
was-
the trebuchets should probably have something that could take it out.
The plan was the other two dragons, and I kind of like that where we need to wait for the Night King to show up, and then Dany's like, time out. I'm just gonna go. Just give me and honestly, I'm kind of glad she did because they were getting wrecked. Like until she shows up.
And
with
it's
dragons.
very on character for Dany to be like, I know we said we were gonna have restraint, but I don't really do that very well.
Restraint's
so
not my jam.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also helped us see what was happening in the battle.
Yeah,
You
it
just kinda,
also
like,
lit
light
some
it up,
stuff up,
and
yeah.
light it up. There you
Yep.
go.
Yeah.
Anytime there was fire, I was like, thank God I can see.
Yeah.
And DJ, you brought up something about this earlier.
Yeah, it was an article I read online that I think made a very good point that when they edit these episodes, a lot of prestige TV shows edit them as if they're movies, which is nice. But when you're watching a movie, you're on one of the brightest projectors you could find in a completely pitch black room. And that's not how most people are even capable of watching TV. Like it's not a reality. And so I know, I don't know if I'd go as far to say it's unfair. I know people are like, it's unfair. You should think about the viewer. You should think about the viewer. And it's tough for something like this. Like I'm sure if we saw it in a theater, it'd be tremendous. But there was a lot, and a lot of us weren't alone. There was a lot of complaining online. It's like, for real, what's going on? Like for me, it was the worst it was during the big dragon fight because I knew cool things were happening, but I couldn't quite figure out what they were until what's-his-face got his neck ripped out, and that was pretty cool.
Well, and I liked the idea of like this is a battle that takes place entirely at night in a snowstorm. Like they can't really see, so it makes sense that we're right there with them in the like chaos and confusion.
Yeah.
But like as a TV show, I wanted to see.
Yeah. That was my one real surprise was the snow was that like
Winter's
they're
here.
bringing the winter with them.
When
like
did the Night King become Storm?
That-
Like, have we seen that happen before?
But it is interesting that he is he is magical. We've established that he is magical. He has abilities. You know, he's clearly the source of the rest of these entities. So it didn't feel like that and him being able to survive the dragon fire.
That was crazy.
Didn't feel completely. I think they said in the little behind the episode thing, it's like there's no reason to think that it. There's no reason to think it wouldn't affect him, but there's also no reason to think it would. We don't know his rules, and we have seen when he walks through fire, the fire kind of like dies down.
But speaking of that, I did like when you can kind of see the only time Bran we see him warging somewhere. The only way we were able to track what he did at any point was when he used the ravens to go follow the Night King a little bit. And you see he's like, okay, now we're gonna just sacrifice whites because of course he is. You have millions of people that you can just throw down as extinguishers.
Oh, when they like World War Z over the trenches.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What a nightmare. There was that was that I think that was the effective part of the decisions of how to display the battle because there was so many times I'm like, this is for real though. This is a nightmare. Like I don't know what you do. You like, and especially once the Night King does his signature move, and like all the people that just because. It doesn't. Cool. We've got Dragonglass and we've got Flaming Steel, so we're taking out the whites. We're taking them out, but that's not accounting. We're not going back and like stabbing our dead. Like, hey, we don't come back, man.
We don't know if that's going to do anything either.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe it's not until they come back, and then because we talked about the crypts and whether that would work or not. But once he does it, you're like, it's just the dead in the vicinity. Like what? what do you do?
No, that moment when he all like Evita's up all the dead people, all I could think was, man, I love playing the necromancer in Diablo games. Man, I'm so badass as a necromancer because you can do that. You're just like, oh, all you're dead, they're mine.
Yeah. Suck it.
Pretty
It's
cool.
terrifying. It's terrifying.
Speaking of dead, though, we lost not that many people in this episode. We lost a lot of.
We lost a lot of
Extras.
unnamed characters.
Yeah.
A lot of Northerners bit it.
A lot of Northerners, like we said, all the Dothraki basically. There was a few that came back running and screaming. And once the Dothraki are running afraid, they're like, oh no. And it looked like a good chunk of the Unsullied are no longer. But props to them, by the way, that like holding the line, like, man, you guys are not afraid of anything, because I would have bailed quick.
The overview visual we have of them opening, letting people retreat, and then closing back up again. I'm like, yeah, you guys aren't going to make it. But great for Grey Worm. He was right up front, and he lasted a long time. Also props to Jorah, because he was with the Dothraki who came back, and then he just, like, was booking it back, and he somehow made it, even though he shouldn't have probably.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
I felt that a lot in this episode. I was like, a lot of the characters we know somehow made it, even though they shouldn't have.
Well,
probably.
can
Sam. I love Sam, but he was rolling around on the ground.
Sam shouldn't have made it.
He was like...
I will say, for characters like Jorah, I think there is an argument that could be made, if you wanted to, that these are the most experienced people, and they've dealt with this before.
They haven't dealt with this before.
But I mean, like, some of them were at Hardhome. Some of them have been pitched battles. Sam doesn't make any sense. Sam 100% should have been in the crypt. But you have the people that we lost, right?
Oh yeah, no, I have the list, but mentioning up top, the one who was the most brutal is Lyanna Mormont. She went out in a cool way, but hot dang, good for you.
It could have been worse, man.
That was real sad. Also, let's just R.I.P. House Mormont, huh?
Yeah, they're all gone. And also, you know what, Theon, I give him his due, because he's been pretty awful all the way around on this show, but he got a pretty good out. But overall, we lost.
Actually, real quick, just pause on that. That actually made me pretty emotional. When Bran's
Same.
like, Theon, you're a good man. It's like, oh, that's all he's ever wanted. Oh,
It is all he ever wanted.
I don't know if it's true, but it's all he's
No,
ever
we're
wanted.
lying on your way out, but you've murdered children just to look good, so you're not a great dude.
Yeah.
Also, I always will remember. And then
the worst. The worst.
It's the worst. Oh yeah, but we lost Dolores. Said, oh no, and then we have Lyanna Mormont, Beric, Dondarrion, Theon Greyjoy, of course, the Night King. He died in a really cool way. Jorah Mormont and Melisandre. That's it, really. Melisandre and Jorah are the only one. I mean, Theon
It's
too.
crazy that list of people is like, oh, not that many. It's like, that's actually pretty crazy, especially when the Night King has been one of our big bads since like the beginning of the show. But again, everybody was there, and so you thought like, more.
Yeah.
I definitely thought we were going to lose somebody huge. And I would say out of this list, I wouldn't argue that any of them are huge. And when I say huge, I mean like Stark, Targaryen, Lannister, huge characters.
I guess maybe Jorah, just because he's the last Mormont, but also
Jorah,
Mormont is like, it's not like,
And
it's
Jorah,
your C-list house.
I think we feel that way kind of too, because Jorah and Theon have kind of been done for a minute. Like they've, they haven't mattered as much for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Beric. Yeah, I guess
he got a really good out. Like
He
him
did get a good out.
holding the wall for them,
Yeah.
and he just was taking a lot of punishment.
And then they were saying that like the reason he was brought back so many times was for that moment to save Arya so that she could fulfill the prophecy.
And I like that it was something small. I like that it wasn't like he blows up the Night King or something. It's literally just saving the one person. That was it. Mm-hmm. And then you move on, and then it gave us Arya's so cool. It was so cool moment. I also liked John got some cool moments too. He had one of my favorite moments when his dragon he crash lands. I thought that was cool. It's the dragon's trying to like do his thing, but eventually it just gacks out. Mm-hmm. And then he's just trying to hoof it through as the Night King's raising the dead. He's just trying to book it to him last minute. Like I thought that was pretty cool.
With that,
pretty cool.
There's a similar scene in another zombie movie with Train to Busan where you have zombies trying to take over a helicopter, and as it's trying to take off, it's dropping more, and they get back up and they're going after people. The dragon shaking off the dead. Yeah, Dany's dragon shaking off the dead and dropping them in the middle of battle. It's like, wow, this is the worst it could possibly be, right?
And also, Dany got her first. She's actually shoulder to shoulder with Jorah, doing her best to like with a dragon glass sword trying to survive.
Just
man.
trying.
Just trying to
Yeah,
survive.
that's when you're like, she's a good ruler. She's not a good warrior.
Yeah, no,
Like
no,
without her
no,
dragon, that's kind of rough.
Yeah. Okay, last thing I want to ask, where do you think, because we have a question about this when we get to our Patreon segment as well, boom.
Yeah.
Where do you think Bran was warging after the Ravens? There's no way he was tracking with the Night King with birds the whole time.
I don't think there's no way. He might have been.
He's like, well, there's a different bird over there.
I-
He's probably got a different
Yeah,
point
I
of view.
think he was off doing bird stuff.
Can you imagine? He was like, yeah, there's like a flock heading east right now. It was
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Like, he's just
yeah.
in bird VR having a great time.
Also, I had a thought for a moment.
It is bird.
Yeah.
It's bird simulator.
I'd also like to point out, I was, for a moment, I thought of like, I wonder what they're up to in Karth when this whole nightmare is happening. Like, I was trying to
he's
think,
there.
I was trying to think the most far away place in the world, not even considering what's happening. And so like maybe he just went to Karth to hang out for a minute and drink that whatever that blueberry juice is that makes their lips or whatever.
Yummy.
He's just chilling where it's warm.
Maybe he took over an elephant.
Yummy.
And he was
that's
like, all right, I was doing the elephants. They're definitely on the show. We're never going to see them, but I saw them, so don't worry.
Yeah.
They're there. Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah.
One of the things we didn't talk about yet that I want to get in there before we wrap things up is the scenes between Sansa and Tyrion
Yeah.
in this episode. I thought were really wonderful because there was so much chaos and there was so much battle and there weren't people we love on both sides. I felt like this show kind of struggled in its storytelling to give us those individual moments.
Yeah.
But having that moment between Tyrion and Sansa where they're staring down the face of death legit in the
Yeah.
crypts and he's like, maybe we should have stayed married, and she says, you were the best of them.
Oof.
I mean, that's so sad, but it's
Yeah.
definitely
It's
true.
100% true, and I also like that. Also gets a good moment from Missandei when Sansa's like, "Oh yeah, the Dragon Queen," and Missandei's like, "Oh yeah, the Dragon Queen. So glad she didn't like. What if she didn't show up? You know what I mean?" And I wish we'd gotten more. I think you're right, Trisha. I wish we'd gotten more crypt stuff because I think that's one of the highlights of Blackwater is
Yeah.
whenever you cut to Sansa and Cersei in the crypt because there's so many dynamics going on, and I think it would have been cool to see that in the crypts.
Yeah,
as well.
I wanted to see more Jaime and Brienne fighting back to back.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the characters that I care about. And not to say that the World War Z stuff wasn't cool because it definitely was and it was terrifying. But yeah, those individual moments are where Game of Thrones as a show shines for me.
And
I was missing a little bit of that.
yeah, and I think for me it makes me more excited for the next 3 episodes because now this threat's out of the way. Which, by the way, I'm just petty enough to be like, who pointed out that maybe the Night King was going to be taken out early in the season? Wait, who was that? Anyway, and now it's Cersei and her whole mess. And then if you saw the preview for the next episode where Dany's like, we what did they call this war? We ended the Great War. We won the Great War. Now time to win the last war. Like, whoa. Slow your roll. That's a little too confident.
Yeah.
Like it's a little too confident.
All
You
of
might
your
wanna-
troops are gone.
Yeah, you might want to be. I mean, I know you're supposed to put on a brave face for your people, but like you seem a little too sure of yourself.
Lastly, a little fun piece of trivia. It took 55 nights to film this episode, and there were over 750 cast and crew members to make this happen. And if you should go online, I highly recommend reading some of the accounts of the actors saying it was the worst thing they've ever had to shoot. Full stop, period. Because it's like you can't get sick. It's multiple nights. You start losing track of what time feels like because you're not spending any time in the daylight because you can't. You have to sleep during the day.
Yeah.
And I think it's somebody threw out a fact that it might be the biggest battle that has ever been caught on for film or television. Now, I couldn't back that up. The other facts I could. That one I couldn't back up. But if that's true, it's pretty cool. But also, gang, we do an extra segment of this show over on our Patreon, and we have a very special guest joining us. And you should take a little look at the clip right here. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so meet us over on Patreon. You can click right up here to find that. But before we do that, let's rate this episode out of 10 big hordes of zombies. There you go. There's the whatever. What would you give it?
I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Even though I wanted more individual character moments, I still think it was a brilliant piece of cinematography, and they did an amazing job conveying just how horrific and chaotic this battle is.
For me, I give it an 8. Yeah.
I give it a 7.5 as well. I did nothing. I was lucky enough. I didn't want to brag during the review, but I was lucky enough to watch it in a dark room, so I didn't know what people were talking about. But so I was. It was a depressing Sunday, so it was perfect for watching Game of Thrones. So I was able to catch most of everything that was happening. Big props. My favorite shot is the dragons above the clouds, so you can actually the moon is lighting them, and you can see what's happening. Super cool. And the Night King just taking full force of dragon fire to his face and not being affected. Yeah. Super fun. But gang, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and comment down below. Make sure you follow us on all the appropriate social medias. Trisha, where can they find you?
You can find me at @GRLTrish on all the socials except for Twitch and YouTube, where it's Trisha Hirschberger.
There you go. I'm the DJ Talks Trash.
At Sam Basher and at Might Be Social. And make sure you subscribe for more content. We have deep dives and explainers coming very soon, as well as more reviews. Make sure you check out our Avengers review. We did a deep dive into Mortal Kombat 11 and violent video games and Avengers Infinity War. Gang, it's been a blast. We hope you enjoy, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. And for Patreon people, stay tuned. We're going to throw up a little hold screen real quick, and then we'll be back with our special guest.
Yay!
Hello, Patreon.
Check.
Transition in here.
Hello.
Hey.
Check this out, Patreon. Look how cool this is. Well, here's a better one. There we go.
How did you mess up the clap? That's impressive.
I'm a man of very few talents, and that's not one of them. So, all right, gonna kick it off in 3, 2, 1. Hello, Patreon. You're already watching. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And guess what, gang? We have a very special guest today, Mr. Lasercorn.
Hey, how you doing? It's good to see ya.
Is it Mr.? Is that appropriate? Or is that your father?
No, we don't do Mr. Lasercorn. It makes
Mr.
me feel
Lasercorn's
old.
my dad.
Yeah, that's my dad. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah,
really
no,
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
coming on.
Yeah,
So
no problem.
you were telling us before we went on air that you had a different opinion about the episode. Tell us
Yeah,
about that.
you guys, I feel scored it too low. I give it a 9.
Whoa.
I was really hype on it. Not today, motherfucker. It was like one of my favorite moments in all of Game of Thrones so
Yeah.
far. And like I'm taking a point off for lighting, and then for it being really dark, and then everything else, I'm like, yeah, 9.
Yeah, I really liked calling back the lesson she learned from Syrio. What do we say to death?
Yeah.
Because who is the best embodiment of death? On the
Yeah,
It's got to be
the
the
Night
Night King.
King, yeah.
And then the dropping the knife and then getting him in the stomach. It's like, yes.
Yeah. Also, I liked kind of the failure of the main two that we thought were it's got to be Daenerys or Jon. They got the dragons right,
Yeah.
and then it's like Daenerys tries with the dragon fire, fail. Jon tries to sneak up on him, Rise of the Dead, fail. And
Yeah.
it's like, damn, they both gave it a shot. Like, who's left? And it's like, Arya out of nowhere.
Yeah. I also really liked, I don't think I mentioned on this episode, one of my favorite bits is when Jon is just desperately trying to get to the
Yeah.
werewood and the dragon's just having a panic attack in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
in the I don't know where, in the courtyard or whatever, and it's just
Yeah.
fire shooting out of its neck and he
Yeah.
just can't get past it.
That's
Yeah.
what's happening. Oh, I
Yeah.
thought it was just like vomiting at one point.
No, because it got
Yeah.
bit in the neck. So
Yeah.
now
It's
when the fire comes out, it was like sprouting out his neck. Yeah, that part was awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping Jon could at least take the dragon out. Like, how cool
Yeah.
would that have been if he pulled a Lyanna and stabbed it in the eye and still doesn't get there in time, but he at
Yeah.
least takes the dragon out.
Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen too, and I like that they went a different way on that as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, it was really cool.
Some people said that maybe because he is part Targaryen, even though they disproved this, that maybe he can't get burned and he could maybe run in front of the dragon.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
that doesn't.
tried it.
No,
bad
he-
time to try, and he has gotten
He
burned.
got
before.
burned before,
But
yeah.
maybe he was feeling like a little cocky, and he was like, "We got to get the brand."
A
little weirdo.
Yeah, he burned his hand when he took out the first white. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, he can get burned.
And the one thing I didn't quite understand is when he just screams. That feels like one of those TV show movie things that a real person would never. Like when he just is screaming at the dragon. Like, what are you actually trying to do right now? Like,
I have
what's
no
going
idea.
through your brain when you're just.
It was out of ideas.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Dude,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, his run through the castle too was so intense. Like that one scene where he closes the gate, and as soon as he gets the latch on, 8 zombie or white hands come through the gate trying
Yeah.
to get him. I'm like, oh man, so intense. Yeah, I love the episode. I thought it
Raining
was great.
zombies is a very
Yeah,
effective way
it's
of making me
raining
scared.
men.
And I think it's
Hallelujah.
appropriate to call them zombies at this
Yeah.
point. Like, we know that they're
100%.
whites, but they
Yeah.
100% behave like zombies.
Yeah, except that
smartest
maybe they can bite
zombies.
you. Maybe they can bite you and you'll be fine.
Yeah, we haven't really established that. Yeah, because it's the Night King that raises you.
Yeah.
So the bite really isn't
Yeah.
what does it.
It might get infected.
Yeah, it might get infected. Yeah.
And infection doesn't work. I would imagine doesn't work great in this.
Yeah.
In this world.
In this world, it's like infection might not be too good.
I mean,
for
look
you.
what happened to Khal Drogo. That was an infection.
Exactly.
What
Exactly.
still such a lame way to go out. I mean, the demon stuff was probably the nail in the coffin, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was no. This, I mean, there are still good moments, and I think they do a overall showing the battle of just how there's not really anything you can do. The only way is to magically have one person that knocks out the rest of the White Walkers.
Yeah.
because
Yeah, that's basically a design flaw on the Death Star at that point, where it's there's really only the one
Yeah,
option.
it's the exhaust port. He's the
Yeah.
exhaust port. Yeah, you say there's not really much you could do, but I was not happy with the tactics they were using. I played a lot of Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 2 and 3 and StarCraft, and when they send out the Dothraki at first, way ahead and separate them from the main body, and they do that charge. I'm like, this is tactically awful. This is
Yeah.
this is a terrible maneuver. You're separating them from the main force. They have no backup. Bring those guys in from the sides. Let the Horde come break themselves on the Unsullied, and then flank with the Dothraki. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, I get that they were gung ho and their swords were on fire, but I'm like, let's have some tactics here. Like get Tyrion out there too.
Yeah.
And like when he's like, maybe we'd see something they were missing. I'm like, yeah, like you sending your entire cavalry out to die for no reason. Maybe you would have seen that.
Yeah.
You jerk. Get out there.
I did
sure.
like that line because
Yeah.
also it's like based on Tyrion's recent track record. It's like probably not, man. It's like fighting a storm at this point. Like I don't think
Yeah.
tactically you can say anything else. Like I like that idea too because maybe
Yeah.
he could have, and like that's a good point that like
Yeah.
maybe don't separate your like crazy good fighters. Like
Yeah.
And I think Tyrion will have his moment to shine in hopefully dealing with Cersei, which kind of brings me to another question. Now that Night King is done, how do we see the rest of the next 3 episodes playing out?
I have a prediction. Do you
Yeah.
guys remember in the books, Euron has that horn?
I did not read the book.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is
I
for-
might be the only other book
Yeah,
person
Oh,
here.
the horn?
Refresh us with the horn.
So at the end, when Euron kind of takes over the Iron Isles, he one of the things he does to like impress everyone and be like, I should be king, is he has one of his guys blow this horn that I don't remember the exact passage, but I think it's a horn that can control dragons.
I think I've heard about
Yes.
this. Yeah.
And it hasn't been shown in the show that he has it, but it also hasn't been shown that he doesn't have it.
Fact.
So like if he were going to negate dragons, the horn would be the way to do it. There's also briefly mentioned in the book about a horn that can control krakens, which is a thing Euron might have. And like I would love to see like a dragon flies above the
Dragon
water.
on Kraken fight.
To
Yeah.
go light Euron ships in fire and then like Kraken tentacles and then like Kraken dragon fight.
Well,
I don't know.
Apparently, George R. R. Martin's been saying that in the next book there's supposed to be unicorns.
Oh.
So,
'Kay.
so
Unicorns, yeah.
Kraken's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I'm not against unicorns.
do you
Kraken
think it's
dragon fight.
earned to have Kraken show up in like the last 3 episodes of the show?
Hey,
Like-
listen, if they can't give us elephants, damn it.
Yeah.
just purely asking because it took them a while to even get to dragons. But
Yeah.
hey, and I want Krakens because it's fire is water. That's that's what we
Yeah.
want. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they took out the Night King in episode 3, so like, how do you top that? You have 5 more episodes to go.
Yeah.
Like, you got to do something. Krakens.
No,
I don't
we-
know. What do you guys?
we
think's
have
gonna
3 more
happen?
episodes to go,
3
right?
More episodes.
Yeah, because
Oh,
there's
wait.
6. So yeah, we have
There's
3
only
more.
6 episodes.
Yeah.
So why was I thinking 8? Yeah.
Yeah.
It
'Cause it's
feels
season
like you.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah, season 8.
yeah.
Yeah, I got my numbers.
So, Trisha, what do you think? How do you think the next few episodes are going to play out?
I want a Kraken.
I think that we're going to get an episode of kind of a denouement from the Battle of Winterfell,
I like
and
that
then
denouement.
right, and then I think we're going to get a lot of political strategy leading into. It'll be interesting since there's only 3 left. If the second to last episode, which traditionally is our biggie, is going to be our biggie, or if they're going to save it all for the finale.
Yeah, because especially with episodes being so long, my thought was denouement. I didn't have that word at the time, but now I have it. I'm going to use it.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
It's like
I know,
new
but
day?
Trisha explained to us what it.
New morning?
no, I don't know what the literal translation is. Maybe new morning. It's that like the afterword in a book kind
Yeah.
of.
Oh, okay.
Refractory period.
It's the section where we kind of like wrap everything up.
So that for next episode, and then big battle in second to last episode. And the last episode is going to be like, hey, where are they now? You know what I mean? Like, where'd
everybody
but
land?
you're right with them being so long. It actually might be beneficial if you get two moments of like, hey, let's get out of this battle, build up to the next one, and then the last one is the big battle, and then at the end, like, hey, how did everybody
Well,
turn
what
out?
everybody loves so much about this series, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the political strategy. Like a lot of people are on board because of the political strategy. So I just hope we get a lot of that
Yeah.
before the big ending.
And do you think it'll be another big battle to rival this one, or do you think they're going to try and do something completely different?
I think you're going to get a more strategic battle and something that feels a little bit more equal, maybe. Like, you'll have the push and pull of, like, maybe there's a chance that one side could win over the other. Really quick, I want to mention, when it came to killing the Night King, a friend of mine sent me a post that I thought would have been really cool, because in the previous, like, little breakdown of this episode we talked about thinking that the weapon Arya had was going to kill a dragon. And one of the posts they sent me was it would be some sort of, like, kind of like a pole device that she would try to kill the Night King with. He catches it, and with momentum, it shoots out little.
I saw that sketch.
you saw
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sketch?
yeah.
It was so cool. I was like, "That's amazing," but no,
That
it
was
wasn't.
cool.
No.
Also,
It was still a range
just
attack.
to point out, it's cool that the knife she used to save Bran is also the knife that was used to try and kill Bran.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely a lot of intention there, and I wonder how much of it is going to play out in the books, because I know in the behind the scenes, one of the showrunners was like, yeah, we've known it was Arya for like 3 years now. And it's like, so that might mean that George he's told them how things wrap up, but not like the specificity of who and what, or that might just be a feint of like, to still try, because they might be still trying to like, hey, there could still be surprises for you.
No, I think it's pretty widely known that George has said in interviews that he told the showrunners like the big ending moments, but they were going to take different paths to get there.
Yeah.
So it might not be Arya in the book.
By the way, you mentioned Bran. What the hell was he doing?
Yes.
It's like, find something better than crows.
Yeah.
You can't find a bear. There was no bear in those woods.
Yeah.
Like, Worgen is something that can actually do something.
Yeah.
You
It can
lose
fight.
it. Yeah.
Maybe Ghost?
He's
Like,
a-
that would have been
yeah,
kind of cool.
Worgen to Ghost?
Yeah.
Yeah, he let me down huge.
Yeah.
was
Ghost
not
or
a fan.
Bran, or both?
Yeah.
What?
Ghost
No,
or- yeah.
Ghost is Ghost was on the front lines.
He
Ghost didn't let me
was,
down.
and then we didn't see him. But he is in the next
Just
episode.
because you didn't see him doesn't mean he wasn't doing his job.
Very true.
We need a whole web series of little mini episodes of Ghost
Yeah.
and what he's doing. We watch Young Justice on the DC Universe app. We review that for our podcast, and their end credits are just like a scene of repose or something, and a lot of times it's this one wolf character that's just napping. It's like, just give us Ghost, like, just
You
he's up there
know.
napping.
Yeah,
He's doing fine.
I'd watch Ghost now.
Yeah, why not? I'd pay to watch Ghost now. But first up, we have a question here from Kate Alex. Okay, now that we actually have time to process things, question: who had the most badass moment in the battle in your opinion? For her, it's Lyanna Mormont. But also place your bets on the Battle of the Cleganes now that we know that the Hound has survived the battle.
Clegane Bowl.
So first up, I want to ask you: are you okay? How do you feel about like not that many like main characters dying in this episode, or do you feel like it was enough? Overall?
Yeah, I feel like it was enough. Theon's been around since season 1. He's a season 1 guy that just went down. Jorah went down. I mean, it was enough for me. I don't know who else. I feel like you can't lose the big two or before the battle, Jon and Daenerys, before the end of the season. I feel like they're fair game in the coming episodes, but I didn't want to lose them on episode 3. So I'm good with it. Yeah.
Nice. So, what was the most badass moment for each of us? Let's start with Trisha.
Arya.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how could it possibly
Yeah.
be anybody else?
I mean, I'll you know what, for the guy, because I always made fun of him. Our old pirate eye, Barrack. He had at least one cool moment of holding back the White Walkers, and Arya. I'll give her the moment of her trying to escape the library,
That was cool.
because I thought that moment, at least I felt like my brain clicked back in, where I was like, and now I'm definitely following what's happening right now.
Quick
It's not
question.
just
You called him Old Pirate Eye. Which eye is the Pirate Eye? Is it the one with the
Barry.
patch or the? I know who it is, but which
Barry.
eye is the Pirate Eye? Is it the patch eye or the good eye?
Good question.
I think it's the patch eye.
yeah,
The patch eye, the covered eye is the pirate. That
Well,
makes
maybe
sense.
we're calling it now. This is the pirate eye.
Okay,
There you
cool.
go.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I also have to go Arya because that's the one moment where I was like, oh yeah, not
Yeah.
today. I got the most excited about. But since we all did that one, the second I have a secondary Arya moment where she's at the top of the steps and there's the zombies coming up the steps and she kind of like crowd surfs over the
Yeah, that
over
was
the whites
great.
like down to the bottom. I'm like, oh, that was ballsy. I like that moment too.
Yeah. I like that
so-
she's definitely using skills we didn't see her learn from the faceless
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
When did she
Yeah,
learn this? I don't care.
she's improvising at this point. I
Yeah.
think.
If you go with second ones, I think the second one is for me is Jon just desperately trying after his Dragon's Crash, just doing his damnedest to try and get to the Night King.
Yeah.
All bets are off. Just trying his hardest and failing miserably.
Yeah.
It was very sad.
Yeah. He's like, I'm the guy.
Yeah. I'm
I'm
supposed to
the
be
first
killing
one
this
to
guy.
fight.
Yeah.
I'm the guy.
I died before. I
Yeah.
got the cool sword. I'm the king.
Yeah.
No one knows that yet.
We're not gonna.
No one knows that.
Yeah, I just imagine when the Night King, like, when John's finally I get to fight the Night King, and then like he pulls up all the dead. I imagine John thinking, hacks,
Yeah.
hacks. He has to fight like 100 whites. Yeah.
And she also asked about the Battle of the Cleganes. Do you see that happening in the next episode? Maybe the episode after? I mean, I genuinely thought the Hound was going to bite it in this episode, mainly because he's just been kind of like, I'm waiting over here and being sad and mad, waiting over here being sad and mad during the battle, waiting over here
fire.
being sad and mad.
Yeah.
I
No, fire,
I
yeah.
will say, as not the biggest like not the most invested fan of Game of Thrones, I definitely forgot what he was doing at that point. I thought he was just having regular old PTSD. I forgot that it's like, I don't like fire.
Oh, fire's like a huge deal for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean, if half
definitely-
your face was melted off by your sibling when you were a child, you probably would feel that way
I
about
mean,
fire
he's made
as
me
well.
throw up once as a kid, and I don't even to this day. So that would probably the fire thing would probably traumatize me pretty bad.
Yeah.
It'd probably traumatize me. I'm interested to see how all that plays out and how fire. Now that you say it, fire will definitely have to factor into that fight somehow.
Maybe,
him and his
maybe.
brother.
I think we
Melt
all
the
want the
mountain.
Hound to win.
Yeah, maybe he'll have to use fire. Yeah, because that's a good point. Because the mountains are white. Whites don't like fire, but also the Hound doesn't like fire. Yeah.
Maybe he'll learn the fire sword technique from Barrett.
Yes.
And now he's like, I'm complete.
That would be awesome.
We don't know that the mountains are white. We just know that he's
Well,
undead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because he wasn't raised by the
that's
White
true.
Walkers. He was made
Yeah,
by
yeah, you're
Qyburn.
right.
A DIY white.
Yeah.
DIY white. Yeah.
Qyburn's
DIY.
version of a white.
Zral13 asked us, where the hell was Melisandre before the start of the episode? She came out of the darkness like, hey guys, need some fire, acting like she didn't just come from the same direction as an army of frozen death. So where do you guys think, where was she at before this? And are you guys okay that she just kind of blew in with the breeze and then she blew out at the very end? Are you guys okay with that?
I was okay with it. That is a good question, though. What was she doing?
Because she came out of, she literally came from where they were
Maybe
coming
she
from.
attempted to bargain with the Night King first. Maybe she attempted diplomacy.
No, I've come to bargain.
And then,
Yeah.
and then her diplomacy skills failed her.
She did her whole Saints
Yeah.
bit where she takes her robe off. She's like, no, this isn't working. Fine, I'll go
Yeah.
over there. No, it's just,
Fine.
yeah.
She's such a puzzling character, and we've kind of been guessing at what her motives are the entire time we've had her on the show. But I think she knows how not well liked she is by our
Yeah.
main characters, so it makes sense that she wouldn't hang out with them,
Yeah,
like
definitely,
just
'cause-
waiting for the battle, because Davos is gonna, like, so many people have it out for her
Yeah.
that she tells the spider in season 7, she's like, yeah, I'm gonna get out of here for a while, but I will be back one more time, and then I'll die here.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother me because I was prepared for it, because I was like, yes, this is her one time back, and now she's gonna die, and great job.
Absolutely, because you talk about people not liking her, and it's like Davos is number one. Yeah, I just survived the giant zombie battle, biggest battle in history, but I gotta go murder her.
Yeah.
Like it's then right before anything else happened.
He did have his hand on his sword.
Yeah, he
that
was
crazy.
ready to go. I liked it because I thought it was effective. It was an effective mood thing. Like when the Lone Rider's coming up and all that stuff. I thought the staging of it was really effective for me. So I don't really care like the logistics of where she was coming from because I thought the scene really worked for me.
Yeah, I liked it too. Yeah, I didn't think too much into it.
No.
But yeah.
I definitely forgot that she had left. Not doing a rewatch before this season is hurting me.
Yeah.
I am feeling it now, not watching the previous season. So that makes sense. Like, and also since that whole like magical, mystical like atmosphere around her, that makes sense. At least I'm fine with it. But last question from Ulysses Campbell: where do y'all think Bran went when he warged away earlier in the episode? My thought is that he went to King's Landing to see what's going on there to hopefully give them an edge in the next fight. Bran, I don't think was thinking that far.
That would
That's
be
counting
Yeah.
chickens
useful.
before it's hatched a little bit.
Yeah.
From the guy who said, "How do you know there is an after?" is
Yeah.
looking that far ahead of them. I don't think that's where he went. But I
That
don't
would
know.
have been something useful, though. And I will say, I didn't bring this up in the last one, but in the opening, they did show us King's Landing.
They did.
And we did not go to King's Landing. So maybe Bran did go to King's
Yeah.
Landing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Maybe.
Yeah, what was he
Yeah.
doing? What was he walking around doing there? Yeah.
I would like to think he just wasn't in Crow VR for the entire episode.
I think
I hope so. I genuinely hope so too.
I think he probably was watching Endgame. He's like, "Look, I gotta get out there before
Yeah.
it's spoiled. I'll be back."
Yeah.
I know this is a whole thing. I
Yeah.
gotta go see Endgame. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm interested to think about how we think with this playing out. I know we talked about our predictions of how the next few episodes play out, but do we think, because now with Arya knifing the Night King, I had a moment where I was like, I could see where Dany's winning. She gets the throne, but she just flashes enough shade, like enough where like Arya's like, you know what, I don't trust her. Stab, stab, stab. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those like, a character I like just did something I really don't think was I'm kind of worried about Arya and Sansa doing something impulsive and maybe jumping the gun a little bit on, because now you're seeing all these articles like Dany's going to be the final boss. She's going to be, which I think is a misreading of the show. I think people are so gauged for wanting surprises. They're not really like.
I don't know about that. I think the show has been pointing in Daenerys' storyline has been pointing to things for a while that she's teetering on the edge of becoming a villain. So if they were like, okay, now Dany has gone full Mad Targaryen and she's the villain, that I wouldn't feel like that was coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Not to say that they've pushed that so hard that I think that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, you're right. It wouldn't come out. It wouldn't come out of nowhere.
It wouldn't come out of nowhere. I mean, we have seen her with the Tarleys. We have
No.
seen her murdering everybody in the Dothraki tent. Like, we
No.
have seen her have times where she was like, I am in charge. Murder everybody.
Yeah.
Which is, normally something we would associate with the bad guy
Yeah.
in a story. So if she goes full power hungry and is not in check, which is why I think Tyrion is so important as a character for her,
Yeah.
if no one's checking her, she could become the villain. I could see that happening.
I could also see a scenario where she has one of those moments, and so she takes out people that we don't like, but Sansa and Arya misread that and kill her, and so it's kind of a mixed. It's kind of a mixed.
Yeah.
Like I don't like. I think Sansa and Arya are overreacting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's still not quite on board, and I think Missandei was kind of right to like tell Sansa to dial it back a bit because Dany's the one saving your ass right now. So.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't see her going full villain.
Yeah.
I think. If I had to call it, I'd say she does take the throne, but I'd say Jon dies defending her in a final battle, and then she is pregnant with Jon's son, who is then the heir to the throne.
Yeah, I think that's the. Yeah, I think that I could see that.
That's my
happening.
prediction.
Yeah. And I could see at this point.
And also Krakens.
Yeah.
That's my
Actually,
prediction.
House of Kraken.
I'm putting my horses behind that too. I really want
That and
just-
Krakens
yeah.
is my vision for the final episode.
I want to see a dragon get caught, pull it out of the water, and we see
Yes.
full view. You're like, oh my god,
Dude, it's funny that you say that. In the book, it says there were dragons that would eat Krakens that way. That would pick Krakens up out of the water and eat them.
Which, by the way, we still have both our good dragons, right?
Yeah, in the next trailer we see Ghost made it and both dragons, and it looks like
So we might still get Ghost riding a dragon.
there you go.
Is that your prediction?
To take
Ghost
out a
rides a
dragon. No,
dragon?
when they told us we weren't getting elephants, we're like, well, now we need Ghost riding a.
You have to.
A dragon to pick a kraken out of the water.
Whoa! But you also get the feeling in next week's episode that the North is more like, okay, Dany's not all too bad. Like after this, it's like, like we lost a lot of our own people. A lot of the North died, but a lot of our specific forces are now fully obliterated. You asked in the last one, like, are the Dothraki fully gone? It's like, a good amount of them, like they're endangered now. Like I mean, like this is, this is bad. So I think we're gonna see kind of like the North kind of swaying more onto the side of Dany. But I still think you're right when it comes to like maybe Sansa and Arya being like,
There's some friction. Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people are like, the North will never bend the knee. It's like they've done it before.
the
It's
North's
like,
basically gone now.
Yeah, they just got saved and they're severely diminished in forces. It's like it would make sense for them to just be like, yeah, let's do this united style.
Also, who knows how many of their resources survived the battle? So it's like, we'll need somebody in King's Landing to send stuff our way.
Nothing. And I mean, the big thing with the North is you have to earn their respect. And the Battle of Winterfell, I would say Daenerys should have earned their respect.
Yeah,
through
that
this.
didn't earn it. Like nothing will.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I'm excited to see what happens in the next 3 episodes and how we start winding this all down. But Lasercorn, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem.
Where can people find you?
YouTube.com/Lasercorn. I'm also on Instagram as the Lasercorn, and Twitter at just Lasercorn with an S, not a Z.
With an S, not a Z. And of course, you can follow Trisha, that girl Trish, DJ Talk Trash, Sam Basher, and Might Be Social. Gang, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Now this is the end for the Patreon. They're still there. Boom.
Cool. Perfect.
Yay!